So bismillah. So as you can see on the screen, there's a Slido. So I have access to the Slido over here. I've introduced you to the panel already. I've got some pre-made questions as well, but I've also got the ones that you guys are submitting. So I've got them both up. So the first, I'm going to start with the ones that have been suggested. So all the questions suggested so far have been related to medicine. You will have time, medics, don't worry. So I want to start with a general question. So how would you guys recommend making friends? Because you've started a massive change from school to university. You don't really have any friends. How do you recommend finding friends? If you, any advice? Who wants to have a last?
Assalamu alaikum. This is a good question. I think one thing to remember is where do you make friends? And you never really make friends in your bedroom alone. So the first step is you need to get out of your room. You need to put yourself into spaces where you can meet people and you can make friends. But what does that look like? Unfortunately, ISOC puts on a lot of events to us. Coming to ISOC events, praying in Jumu'ah, in the mosque or in the prayer room, again, especially like Maghrib and prayers like that where people would turn up. Also, I'd recommend going to lectures. A lot of the time, especially now lectures are recorded, it's quite easy to just think, I'll just watch them online, whatever. But actually, especially in your first year, if you regularly attend your lectures, you build more of a network on your degree. And that's also really important, to build friends within your degree. Because as time goes on and things get challenging and stuff, having people to rely on, maybe when you miss things or when you have assignments, is really helpful. So for example, for us, I remember the first time we had a problem set due, one of our friends said, one of my now friends said, should we just book out a room in the library and do this together? And in that room was maybe about 8 guys, and still to this day we're all friends, and every time there's an exam period, everyone gets together. So yes, so first of all, just get out there.
Assalamu alaikum. But just to add, there's this pressure, I think, a lot nowadays that you have to find a group of people in first year, or you have to find your set people, and you'll go through a lot of changes this first year, whether it be with friends, or just living out, or commuting, things like that. A lot of changes, and it'll be hard to adapt, but you guys will. A lot of things get easier with experience. In terms of friends, whether you have 50 or 5, especially if you're living out, there's going to be times when you're always by yourself. You know, you might come home really late and you're going to be in your room, you're going to be by yourself. And so I think, whilst it is really important to learn how to make friends and hang out with loads of people and keep yourself busy, it's also important how to be by yourself. It is a life skill that, unfortunately, it's not the easiest, but it does get easier with time, and figure out what works for you. All the advice that we're giving is, inshallah, will be beneficial, but ultimately, it's your life. Whatever works for us does not mean that it will necessarily work for you. But yeah.
The next question that I have is balancing life as a commuter and studies and family life and also having a social life. So,
yeah, so I'm a 5-year-long commuter, so I think I would know about this topic. It can be a little bit difficult at the start because I know you kind of want to be doing things, especially like UBISoc and IMed related. You want to be on campus, explore and really enjoy things, but you also, don't want to be neglecting that time with your family. But it's really important to sort of find a balance. If you're putting a lot of effort into going to UBISoc and IMed events and making like a conscious decision to go, then also in the week try and make a conscious decision to also spend time with your family. So if you went, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, then, you have the rest of your week. Think about maybe I'm going to schedule this evening to sit with my mum, or go home and cook or sit with my siblings and that kind of thing. So I think, it makes it easier if you also, it sounds a bit weird, but to schedule those kind of things into your life as well. And so then, again, it just means that you have like a nice, balance throughout the week. And it helps you sort of, balance both of those things together. So I think scheduling is a big tip I would give.
Oh, that's very, very good advice. It's definitely possible to balance. I don't feel like you're missing out entirely by not being on campus if you do live at home. There's So the next question, I think, is the most asked question on the Slido, and if you see the link over there, you can scan it and ask me questions, is what do I actually do during lectures? So, I don't know who went to lectures here. Anyone want to talk about it? How do you use lectures? What do you do?
Do you want to go for this? Okay, I'm not sure I'm exactly qualified to talk about this. I think I was falling asleep in a fair few. The first semester, I would say you really find out what works for you. Try out loads of different things. I know that one time it was like iPad, taking notes, or one time it was making empty flashcards during the lecture. Sometimes it's realising the lecture doesn't even work out for you. So you'll spend about an hour or 2 hours in the lecture and you think, I have actually learned nothing from that. I'd be better off learning at home. But you'll never really know until you experience the different ups and downs of each one. So just experiment, ask your friends what are they doing, but don't follow them if it doesn't work for you. Really find a pattern and what works for you. I think it's a bit different from A-levels, but if you guys can do A-levels, you're more than qualified to be here. Seriously, like Allah has decreed that you are here, you passed your exams, you've done the hardest bit, and yeah, lectures are good, but if they don't work for you, they don't work for you. There's no pressure ongoing or anything like that. Do not tell your lecturers I said this.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I also think that between now and December is a real experimental time for you guys. So don't feel like in the second week of lectures you need to have your way of doing things down and all your Anki flashcards or whatever it is done. I feel like what I did in first year is I was really just experimenting with a bunch of different things up until December, and then for my January exams, which we used to have back in the day, I was able to sort of get into a routine of something that worked for me and that I wanted to do. So yeah, like Salima was saying, find what works for you, and also there's no rush. You have a long time until your summer exams, so just take this time now, really experiment, have a go at a couple of different things and see what you like.
So moving on to a slightly different topic. Keeping your faith strong whilst being at university, because I think there's a lot of peer pressure to do certain things at university. Like you might, at least I felt sometimes a bit left out because everyone's going to do a certain thing, and you kind of feel like I don't really want to go to this, but then at the same time I also want to have friends. So how do you recommend keeping your faith strong at university? So yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My answer is slightly linked to the beginning question, which is about how to find friends. And the question I would put to you is, do you even need friends? Right? How important is it actually to have friends? If you think about it, when you have your certain beliefs, right, and the people around you are going to actively challenge your beliefs, on one note, that's a good thing, because it gets you to actively think, right? Are we here just to be blind followers, to be sheep? Or are we here, as our religion tells us, to be shepherds, right? So in one sense, it's good to mix with people of different faith and different beliefs, right? Because you want to investigate what other people's ideologies are. And I guarantee you, and please come back to me and have a debate with me afterwards if I'm wrong, I guarantee you, you'll come to the decision that Islam is correct, right? Faith, your religion, is every single thing that you're ever involved with, right? There's no instance where you don't have faith involved in something. People have this polarization of deen and dunya. I don't believe in that. I don't think deen and dunya is an actual thing. Everything is deen and everything is dunya, because the dunya is inherently linked to the deen, right? So if your mindset, your paradigm is always intrinsically linked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you'll never have that issue. Okay, but what does that actually mean? It means you're constantly in the pursuit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in whatever way possible. In your degree, your law degree, your English degree, your physics degree, your medicine degree, any type of degree. That's not some deen thing and then your dunya thing is your salah. That is your pursuit of Allah. That's your understanding of Allah. If you always keep Allah in your mind, then what can I say? When you see people partying, don't go and party. When you see people drinking alcohol, don't go and drink alcohol. What can I say? If you care about Allah that much, that's what you'll go and do. Al-mar'u ala dini khalila, right? The person is around the people who he's closest with, right? he's upon the religion or the beliefs of the people he's around, right? So if you know that you're vulnerable, right? If you know that your faith is shaky, then you should be sensible and mature enough and accountable enough to take yourselves towards people who will remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you feel ready to actively engage in discussion and get your beliefs challenged because it's healthy, then make friends with people from different cohorts. It's totally your decision. Change is not in my hands or Harun's hands or Bilal's hands, it's in your hands. Barakallahu feekum.
Jazakallah khair. If I were to add anything, all I'd say is that genuinely, I've had some of the most fun in my life in the past 4 years, 3 years, I'm 4th year now. And alhamdulillah, I've been able to avoid some of the things that people traditionally consider fun. And genuinely, like through Ramadan and charity week and just seeing friends, it's not just like going out for some food. Like we do this thing where we have this group chat. And there's, I think, the home sisters and there's one brothers definitely. Or we used to meet up on sometimes Mondays or Thursdays and have food. We'd fast and have food. Even some of these days, we just have a lot of fun. We'll just make a lot of jokes. We'll have a really good time. And I felt that being around that kind of company made the religion so much like sweeter for me. Also just seeing people achieving so many amazing things whilst also being amazing in their degree, they also develop themselves in their deen perspective, or at least their knowledge of Allah. You can achieve both, definitely. So I think that will definitely help at university. Hopefully ISOC, IMed is going to be a facilitating factor for that, inshallah. The next question I have is, how do you recommend dealing with housemates generally, and specifically people who may not have the same restrictions as us in terms of alcohol or pork or meat or things in a shared space? So, there's only one mic, sadly.
So I'm second year now, but first year I was living in accommodation, and one of my housemates, she wasn't a Muslim, and she drank a little bit, and she also brought her boyfriend over sometimes. And it was difficult, but it's not like you couldn't navigate around it. She was very polite, she was very respectful, she wouldn't outwardly drink. So we made some, not compromises, but we communicated. So I said, whenever you're drinking, please do it in a contained way, put your bottles away, things like that. Whenever you're bringing your boyfriend over, please let me know so I can dress accordingly. She was very respectful about it, she was very polite, and that way I still managed to do everything I was able to do, and she did her thing. It's not always possible, and I was very lucky to be with someone who was able to communicate that way. But if it does escalate, definitely come to ISOC, go to the living services, people who can deal with that, because especially when you're living away, home is the one place you should never feel uncomfortable in. So we can help you if there's anything that's troubling with you in terms of housing and accommodation, but it is definitely possible to still live your life as a Muslim and not feel uncomfortable around non-Muslims. Just always be polite and respectful. You'll always have the high moral ground, and but if it does escalate, come to us. We're here for that.
The next question I have is the top one on the slider right now. How do you deal with stuff you don't understand? So more so equations that don't make sense or feel like have any links to similar equations. The last math bit.
So I think normally like some of the most challenging parts of degrees tend to be the mathematical side. And there's one really good resource at uni, which is on the first floor of the library. They've got a math support hub. I think they've got it this year as well. And basically you just walk in, you don't need to book or anything. And you go in and they've just got some maths PhD students sat there. And you just go in and say, I'm really stuck, please can you explain this? And they give you the best explanations. So I really recommend the maths support hub, first floor of the library. Otherwise, use your older years maybe. I think a lot of people have been through the same thing before. Typically like maybe lecturers are bad and things, people can give you notes. That's what.
What I was going to say is that
degree equations.
I haven't, to be honest, I'm in my third year now, and I still feel like it's teaching me how to familiarize myself with Greek letters. Like, maybe go learn the Greek alphabet, that's what I'd say.
work whilst being a student at university? Can you do both?
Yes, you can definitely do both together. I have been working alongside my degree as well. You can do loads of things that students do, such as like tuition and things like that. There's loads of jobs that you can do and still sort of do your degree as well alongside that. It doesn't mean that you are going to be neglecting your degree in either way. I think the common misconception is with your degree you don't have loads of time, especially maybe with things like medicine or dentistry and even like engineering and things. But you do have a lot of time. It is just how, as Varun was saying at the start, how you balance your time and how you spread out your week and timetable your week. So yeah, I definitely think you can work. There's opportunities on campus as well. I'm not very well versed, but there are many working opportunities on campus as well, which makes it easier because you're kind of already there. And things like online tuition, and there's loads of jobs that you can do there. But again, I think the overriding principle is all about how you kind of balance your time and making sure that you're not overdoing one or the other. So not overworking yourself in terms of a job either. And maybe it's a good idea if you guys are in first year to just see how it goes for now. Give it a couple of months, settle into a sort of routine with your degree, and then start looking for some job opportunities. But yeah, overall it's definitely doable.
Okay. I completely back that. You can definitely work as a university student. And on campus, if you go to University Centre, which is the building that has Spa in it, there's a shop there called WorkLink, and WorkLink is the university official working on campus scheme. So you can apply, and there's loads of jobs there. So definitely look into that if you are interested. The next question is. Ooh, this is good. How do you recommend keeping busy beyond academics? And I think going on from that as well, sports-wise, how do you recommend staying fit whilst being a university student? Because otherwise things can. So, anyone got any?
So staying busy-wise, I think first of all you have your degree, but in first year it can be not that. The reason you might not be busy is because your degree isn't too intense in first year. So I'd say one thing to do is stay interested in your degree. So outside of studying, you can still maintain an interest in it. There's a reason you chose to study it, especially something like social sciences. If you maintain an interest in it, then when it comes to studying it properly, maybe in your second year, it becomes easier. In terms of keeping fit, I think especially for guys, you don't really have an excuse when you're at uni. You have as flexible a schedule as you want, and you largely have a lot of time. So I think basically having some regular fitness and maybe gym, maybe sport is pretty much essential. Sports-wise, UBISoc has a group chat for I think basketball and football, and we have a sports rep this year. So basically, in football-wise, people just message who wants to play on this day, this time, and they'll sign up a team. You can also start a campus league team. So if you've got a group of friends maybe, or you could even reach out to people you don't know and join another team. You can enter into a six-a-side football league and play regularly every week against other teams in your league. You sign up through the UBISoc website.
That's it. The next question is, this is a very good question. How do I deal with the guilt of not putting enough time into Quran and dhikr because of the educational/academic demand of assignments and exams? So how do you deal with the guilt of not doing enough Quran or dhikr?
This is a really difficult question. In terms of guilt with anything, I think guilt, regret, the best thing is to move on. The best thing is to say, what can I do to improve myself? Dwelling on that will never help anybody. I think the best thing is just to implement it into your daily routine. No matter how small, if you read a little bit of the Quran every day, with meaning that really just help after Fajr or in the evening. In terms of dhikr, you have so much free time, just walking around campus, go from one place to another, even cooking, putting Islamic podcasts or stuff on in the background. Yeah, the guilt is something between you and Allah, and that's really hard, but I think if you just make a conscious effort, make the intention to do better, but don't be too hard on yourself, like we're all dealing with different things. But yeah, definitely just a little bit every day. The best of these are the smallest but consistent. So yeah. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think maybe the guilt comes from like feeling that you're not making a conscious effort, or that you're not, you're going through the sort of motions of life and you're not consciously doing your Quran and doing your dhikr. But exactly as Salima said, if you sort of make a conscious effort, even if it's just a little bit a day, or if you feel like maybe you're not remembering to do it, then just doing simple things like downloading like a dhikr or a dhikr app on your phone that gives you like a reminder about the best times to sort of do it, can help sort of slowly incorporate that back into your daily life and also back into your consciousness as well. But again, as Salima said, it happens, and it's about sort of, just recognizing it and making sure that you're, doing something or another to address it, and, Allah rewards, even the smallest of efforts. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think also coming back to what I was speaking about earlier, every action can be spiritual, and you shouldn't just think that you just doing dhikr is purely through saying Subhanallah, for example, Alhamdulillah. Of course, this is dhikr, and you must do this, and saying Salawat on the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But dhikr linguistically is like mudhakara, which means like remember. So if you're remembering Allah through your actions, that is a kind of dhikr. So don't forget that as well. And I think, at least from my personal experience, you walk so much in university. Like if you live on the Vale, for example, and you come to campus, that's like 15-20 minute walk, and you do that on the way back, that's like 40 minutes a day of walking. You can listen to something productive 100%. Even if only one journey, because you're tired in the evening, even on the morning journey, listen to something productive, listen to a podcast, listen to some Quran, because the Quran is the best of dhikrs, or adhkar. So you can definitely do both. I think this question is there's a question about Ronaldo or Messi, but I'm not going to open that can of worms. There's a sister asking a question about the opportunity to get married and move to the UAE. I think I would leave that question to the sisters after, and if that sister or any sister would like to ask one of the sisters after about that question, I think that can be answered. But yeah, I think this is a really good question. Next one. How do you interact with the opposite gender at university? And I think in addition to that, how do you deal with assignments? Because we are living in a society where we have to work together as both genders, and it's allowed by Islam to work together in a professional setting. But how do you recommend doing that? How do you practically deal with dealing with the opposite gender and working assignments and things? So, anyone got any advice for that?
This is a reminder to myself first and foremost, but I'll just keep it short. The best advice I was given was last Ramadan, and it was one of the sisters, and she said, when you're interacting with the opposite gender, you should always try and think of these two things. Is it necessary, is it public, and is it professional? With necessary being the priority. If it's not really necessary for you to be interacting with the opposite gender, then try and avoid it. And then if you have to interact with them, try and make it as public as you can, and then try and be as professional as you can when you're talking to them. Obviously, we all slip up. May Allah forgive us all. That advice really stuck with me, and that just a necessary, public, and professional. In regards to assignments, I would say that's kind of necessary, because it's not like you can just stop working with the opposite gender. But again, then you try and keep it public, and then you try and keep it professional. Sometimes it's easy to forget when you're interacting with the opposite gender and they're not Muslim that it's because they're not Muslim, so it's fine. But yeah, we're a Muslim brother, we're a Muslim sister, regardless of what situation. So yeah, but that was the best advice I was given. So yeah, anything to add?
Anyone add to that? Yeah, I think it's it's a difficult thing to balance university. A lot of people think that somehow like just being friends is like okay, but obviously keeping things as professional as we can, it protects our deen and protects our dunya. So I'd recommend that. I think we're not going to stay on this for longer because we do have to go to the breakout rooms. There are lots of questions. People don't ask that being a student ambassador. They've covered that through working. Yes, it'd be worthwhile doing. Sorry? Yeah, we'll do a careers question. So, one of the questions is about making the most of university. So how because a lot of people are doing a degree to get a job in a certain field. How would you recommend using the university's career services, or how do you plan on getting things like placements? When do I need to start considering these things, considering jobs and stuff like that? Does anyone have anything else?
So with everything career-wise, basically university isn't going to help that much, and you sort of have to do it all yourself. If you're in your first year, you're probably like, well, I don't even know what's out there, and I don't know what I'm interested in. And that's like where you're expected to be. But it's much better to ask those questions as early as possible. Because a lot of people might get to third year, and then it's like, okay, I know next year I'm not at university, I want to be working, what do I want to be doing? And by that time you might get quite late. Because really what you want to do at university is try and build as much experience as possible, whatever field it's in, so that in an interview you have something to talk about, or so that an employer looks at your CV and they have something to look, they see a potential candidate. So practically what you can do is, I'd recommend writing a CV, because a lot of the time we won't have a professional one. If you write a CV, chances are you'll look at something quite blank. You'll have your degree, maybe some part-time jobs, maybe some interests, and then you can really see where the gaps are, and it's usually going to be in your work experience. So you really want to try and build that as much as possible. In certain industries, it really pays to start early. So in your first year even, there are applications to do like insight days and spring weeks at some firm, some company, some industries. And then that will be like a 1 or 2 day introduction during like the Easter break around that time. And then that can lead to interviews for a summer internship the next year. They'll like fast track you through the process. And then if you do a summer internship, that can fast track, that can like likely turn into a job. So you can see that you could already go into your third year with like job secured and things like that. It's possible to do that. I think probably there's like more to talk about on this subject, and there's like more. It's quite like it suits a one-on-one setting more, yeah. But really just start looking and asking the really basic questions as early as possible. And there's more than one route out there. So like just because if like a lot of people you know are applying to a certain industry and it doesn't appeal to you, you don't need to feel like left out or I'm left behind or anything like that. Yeah, that's what.
What I'd say is, can you imagine going into an interview and everything feels very mechanical? Like the guy asks you, what experience do you have? And you go, oh, you know what? I remember I listened to some podcast where he quoted a guy, Einstein, right? Physicist. And you make it out to the interviewer like you read the whole book of Einstein and you quote that quote. It feels a bit dishonest, right? So what I would say is, how do we avoid feeling mechanical when we're thinking about careers and CVs and stuff like that? What I would say is, as a first year student, there's a lot of information overload, right? You're going into new lectures, starting new modules, maybe moving out of home. A lot of things ISOC's doing as well, right? A lot of things to take in. My general advice to you, because courses differ, is don't think too hard about your particular career and how you're going to apply to it yet, right? Leave that maybe for second year or third year, depending how your course is structured. Right now, what's important to think about is what are your goals and what are your visions, right? I need you to start planning your goals from now, right? We talked earlier about how do you prevent feeling guilty when you're not reading enough Quran or doing dhikr. The way you can prevent that is really, it's kind of like imposter syndrome, right? Have you guys heard of imposter syndrome before? Yeah? Okay. It's like when you do something and you don't feel like you're worthy of doing that thing, right? When you're being a Muslim, right? And then you're not doing enough Quran and Salah because you have a certain definition of what being a Muslim is, you you feel like you're not a Muslim, so you no longer feel like you fit the identity of a Muslim. So firstly, identify as a Muslim and realize that Islam expands to everything. Then when you're setting your goals, realize that you need your goals to be centered around something, right? So don't think about, okay, what career, unless you know what you're going to do. If you know what you're going to do, that's good, right? If not, don't think about, okay, how am I going to apply to a certain career? Think, what am I aiming for? And along the way on that journey of trying to achieve that thing you're aiming for, you'll naturally pick up skills that you want to pick up that will be good in that type of interview or that type of personal statement. You guys have just written personal statements, right? Let's be honest, okay? Who is totally honest with their personal statement? Who is? MashaAllah. It's an amazing thing, right? I know I wasn't fully honest, right? If you were, alhamdulillah, that's good, right? But think about goals. They'll make you a bit more honest about your process in life in general and applying to jobs and interviews, etc.
I think there are a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to have time to cover them all. I think the top rated one right now is way too deep to cover right now. The question is, since we have to pay back student debt, which includes interest, which is a major sin, do we have to repent for that? That is a very deep question. And I think that goes beyond the remit of this session. I could talk about that for 10 minutes. So I think if the person who's asked this question, they can submit it to someone and we can write an answer or something. We'll discuss that inshallah later on. And the other questions about learning further views about Islam and covering content and things. There is a lot of things. The support hasn't ended, so definitely in the breakout rooms, feel free to ask your subject leads and get some advice from them and maybe get some opinions from that. And on the particular one of student debt, I'm happy to speak about that later. Without extending things too long, just going off what Bilal said about career advice. ISOC, I'm going to show it on the next slide, or the slide after. We created this thing called the ISOC network, which is essentially alumni network / student network. It's called the UBISoc X alumni network. What it is we've created group chats for each subject. So there's a group chat for all the engineers, all the computer scientists, all the law students, etc. And it goes beyond. So we have people that have actually graduated in that subject. So for example, you're doing computer science. There are graduates who did computer science here who are now working in the real world. So if you want to find advice for your particular subject, so for example, you're a first year, you can ask them to say, I want to find out advice what my career options are, and one of the people who have graduated, or a third year maybe, can reply to you and say this. There's already these things exist with IMed for medicine and dentistry, so ask them there. There are dentists, there are doctors on there, there are foundation doctors, registrars, consultants, etc. on that group chat, and you can ask your questions on there. So definitely feel free to use that resource because it will give a lot of career advice, because we want to tap into the Muslim network. Without extending too much, I want to get some final advice for what you give to a university student. I'm going to get one from the sisters, one from the brothers. So just general final advice that you would give to a first year starting university. What would you wish you had told yourself?
So as someone who's very much in your guys' shoes a year ago, first thing I would say is to keep a record. Not of everything, but like do what works for you. I have a journal, some people like Snapchat memories, things like that. You're going to have an incredible year and you're going to make so many good memories. And looking back, you're going to realise just what a blessing it all was. And even the bad times, you're going to learn from them. And the people that you interacted with even once, you're going to learn so many things from them. So definitely keep some sort of record. The second thing is always say yes unless it, doesn't work with either Islam or it compromises your sleep or mental well-being. You're not going to remember the 9 a.m. lecture you went to, but you will remember the conversations you have with your friends at 2 a.m. A bit too many, I can't lie. But yeah, keep a record and always say yes. And there's going to be a lot of things that you guys experience for the first time because so many new things are happening. So you might make a few mistakes and that is perfectly okay. Be very forgiving on yourself and also surround yourself with people who also forgive. Because Allah loves those who forgive. But yeah, you're going to have a really good year, trust me guys. Just stay true to yourself and don't compromise anything when it comes to Islam. Yeah, the only difference between us and you guys really, we're here and we're sitting on the panel. The only difference is that we have a tiny bit more experience, but we've made a lot more mistakes. That's the main difference. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And ISOC and IMed are always here for you for anything you have.
final piece of advice?
My final piece of advice. What is my final piece of advice? As she said, you know, we're no different to you. Like, we're just maybe a year or two senior to you guys in terms of degree, years, not even age. So maybe have a bit of faith in yourself. And it's very good to take advice, but also make sure that you're autonomous and independent in your decisions. Because a lot of the time, if you let people make decisions for you, you'll end up being led down the wrong route. So just be aware of the decisions you make, because it's totally down to you.
Actually, just sort of one thing. That's probably lower your expectations a little bit. The easiest way to not be disappointed is to just lower your expectations. Also, most people go through, like, at some point, feel like lonely or disillusioned with uni, or have feelings of like doubts and things like that. So that's also very normal. And then also you're going to have to figure it out yourself. As much as people say, oh, this is how my experience was, or this is what we recommend doing, like, everyone's experience is going to be different. So yeah, just try and enjoy it.
Barakallahu feekum. I want to thank all of the guests for being here today and for giving up their time, inshallah. Inshallah, you guys benefited from what they said. Please make dua for each and every single one of them and all of the people that put effort into allowing this event to happen today. So I think moving forward, we're going to have a very short break now. I think things have slightly, maybe not slightly, very overrun. That's okay, because that's the way we do things. Inshallah, the plan now is to have a very short break for about 5 minutes.